All right, boys, we are live. Episode 1. We're going to call it the Truth Bombers, right?
Sort of.
The group chat gone podcast. So I guess in a spate to save our screens, to save our thumbs from all the ranting and emotional typing that goes on through the season. Been great to take this step and rant to the whole world. Okay, so and I've just got my notes here. How are we coming along with the jingle and a logo?
Give me a couple of weeks. So we decided the name yesterday, so 2-week turnaround. We'll have it by the start of the season.
My 2 cents was taken.
The old, we did lose some money on a logo that's already taken, yes.
So boys, the Essendon Football Club, pretty toxic relationship, plenty of gaslighting, plenty of emotional trauma.
Love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
Up and down.
Very much promises the world and under-delivers, especially the last couple of years. But it's also a bit like our younger brother, I guess. We're happy to bully him, we're happy to call it as we see it, but God help anyone else who tries, because I'll defend this football club to the death.
Absolutely.
Alright, so Season 1, Episode 1, we're going to call this the 2021 season review. Okay, so coming into the season, obviously the trade period last year for us was pretty tumultuous. I started to get very nervous, more so with the Adam Sard and the Orazio Fantasia outage. As much as I love Joe Danaher, I think that was never going to eventuate into...
We knew 2 years ago he was gone.
And I think with Joey too, I felt that was more the club let him down in his kind of recovery and how they managed him over the last few years, more than him looking to draft away and get away and restart.
I think he lost confidence with the medical staff or the coaching, whoever it might have been, and then therefore he wanted out.
Yeah. There were reports though that he wasn't training at his height as well. Like there was a lot of guys that left the club and then went on to say he didn't put in 110% into his recovery.
It'd be tough being an All-Australian at 19, the weight of the world on your shoulders, Essendon 5 or 6 years ago, coming out of the saga, you're almost supposed to be the chosen one, especially the Danaher name.
Yeah.
I reckon he did play early. In that time when he did that season, he broke through. We needed a tall, we needed a forward. He had the name. He should have played a couple of years, developed in the VFL, got that confidence up because he never had it.
Well, we haven't had a full forward since Matty Lloyd finished.
Yeah, Matty Lloyd, exactly.
Right? So, and arguably we still don't have one now. So coming into season 21, our big list changes, as I said, Joe Danaher moved across to Brisbane, Sardi, Judas.
Don't bring up his name.
Obviously moved across to Carlton, Fantasia to Port Adelaide, Big Bally retired, Tom Bell-Chambers retired. Conor Mckenna was a pretty interesting departure amongst all the COVID stuff with him.
Absolutely.
That one hurt a little bit, I think, for me, because I didn't think we did anything wrong, and he just got homesick, and he went home, played Gaelic football, won the equivalent of the AFL Grand Final for his hometown last year.
Yeah.
So it was the right move for him, but geez, it was a tough.
You're not in the screen there.
Sorry, mate. Just 2 hours.
Got that big booming voice.
Hardest thing is that Sard obviously left or requested a trade, and we lost McKenna. So any sort of run off half back, and we sort of didn't have that player that was ready to go until obviously
that was the biggest thing for me. Where I could lose Fantasia. He hasn't played well for a couple of years now. We'll get goals somewhere else. Dan hadn't played for two and a half years, so it doesn't really matter. But when you lose, like you said, you lose those two back guys, that was all that our game style, that speed off the back.
Yep.
How are we going to get that speed?
It's interesting what you said about Danaher and the idea that people maybe said he wasn't putting 110%. There was a few times, even when he was playing games back like that, when he was sitting on the fence waiting for kick goals, and just there was an attitude there and when he did come back against Hawthorn and kick 3, there was a moment there where I thought he's back, he's having fun, he wants to stay. But I think the way that it's easy to say now, the way that it's worked out, it was for the best for both parties. He's kicked a goal every game for Brisbane last year.
He did until the finals.
Yeah.
Seeing Sard in tears in a Carlton jersey for the highlight of my year, to be honest.
Well, let's not
Another yet. Stab him in the back.
And then delistings from the start of last year. Obviously, Sean McKernan, he ended up going to the Saints. Mitch Hibbert ended up doing pretty well across at the D's.
Yep.
Premiership playing out the D's.
I think you're thinking of a different Hibbert.
Am I?
Yeah.
Michael Hibbert. Still past Essendon, wasn't
Mitch Hibbert actually went on to play for Williamstown, I think.
Oh, there you go.
Played.
The Hibbert brothers done pretty well.
They're not even related.
Josh Begley, a couple of senior games. Jacob Townsend I was probably as crushed when we delisted Townsend as we were when
we've got half an hour on the podcast.
I know,
so keep this rant because I've heard it for about an hour.
Absolute list clogger.
Completely disagree. I thought in a year when we were trying to rebuild our attack, he was someone that was going in as a tough nut, putting his head over the ball in that forward line. And I was really shattered when he got the cut and moved across the Gold Coast. So,
still Gold Coast?
No, he got delisted the start of this year.
Yep.
He's a premiership player. All right, our big notable ins for the start of last season. Peter Wright came across from Gold Coast. Jai Caldwell from GWS. Nick Hine came in for St Kilda. Nick Cox at pick 8. Archie Perkins at pick 9. Zach Reed at pick 10. Josh Eyre at pick 39. Cody Brand at pick 33.
All right, I'll start this one off. I think Peter Wright, for me, was the big thing we needed. We needed someone tall. We needed someone to kick goals this season, or last season. Peter Wright was the best man on the market that was gettable. Kicking 30 goals for the season, or 33 goals for the season, I think is a bit of a pass. In hindsight, the 3 boys that were picked up in the top 10, I was very critical that we should have gone, put a package deal, go for that low number, get like a pick 2, pick 3. But geez, I was wrong. Getting Coxie and Perko and see how they developed so fast. And then I guess we didn't see much of Zach Reed after he got glandular fever, was it?
Well, Lachie actually mentioned to me that he heard that Zach Reed's actually the pick of the bunch.
So that's what the talk is, that he's the best of the 3. He played the game in Brisbane, and after that,
and then
glandular fever.
And that was a stiff game as well.
It was in the rain.
Yeah.
We got flogged. Well, it's just stating the obvious. But he didn't play again. But the talk is that he's the best of the 3. Tall defender, very skinny, needs to put on a bit of weight. Put a bit of size on like Benny.
I say that about our whole list, pretty much. All right, so
Stewart's bulky. He's big arms, shoulders. Yeah, absolutely.
Funny Peter Wright comment. When Jonathan Patton was on the market and there was talks that he was going to come to Essendon, that actually excited me because I do agree. I think for the most part, what we've missed is a big body that wants to play that key position forward. And
take the number 1 defender.
Yeah, we've got our Harry Jones or our Joe Danaher, blokes that are going to take that number 1 pick. We don't have, and we still don't. We don't have a Charlie Dixon. We don't have like a
King brother.
Yeah, even the Kings, they're still that kind of.
They're still young. They'll get there though.
Yeah, but we don't have that big, hard pack smashing number 1. Josh Bruce is probably another one.
Yeah.
Supposedly in the pre-season, Peter Wright has developed that part of his game. So I would say he was the sort of player that if you let him leap at it, he would get a free run, he'd take the mark, and as soon as you put body on him, absolutely no chance of touching it.
Can't take number 1 defender for sure.
Yeah, but I believe this pre-season he's actually worked on that sort of part of his game. So hopefully that protects someone like Harrison Jones, allows him to develop and actually not have to take the number 1 defender.
Yeah, I mean, look, Peter Wright showed he can fucking kick the ball, and he can kick the ball from outside 50, and he can kick 70 in a game.
He's a top 5 draft pick, isn't he?
Yeah, but again, it's one of those didn't really. I mean, obviously didn't get much opportunity at Gold Coast, but still young. I thought he was late 20s. He's another early.
See, 20s. He got stiffed at Gold Coast when the Kings came in, all these stars came in, and he got stiffed at the start of the Essendon season because we had no ruckman. So he was put in the ruck, and then he was taken out of the ruck. So he didn't have a good flow on until the end of the season, actually in the forward line to focus on kicking goals, and he kicked 7 in one game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess you take that gap out of his game. He's only kicking 25 for the season.
Still alright, more than a goal a game. I sort of think you take that. We pretty much gave up a 4th round pick for him. So
yeah, we got him for nothing.
I think that was a parking cone with 2 of the reflecting lights.
Yeah, a couple of sausages.
Talking about getting someone for nothing, Nick Hine has to be the biggest score in Essendon history. We gave up, I think, a 5th round pick that wasn't even used by St Kilda, and we pay him half the amount of cash that we gave Sardi, and he outperformed Sardi in every stat you could think of.
Except when they came up against each other against Carlton. Tell me this, how does a player go from being in the Essendon VFL team, coming up through the development, to get traded away to then have to bring back? How do we miss a Nick Hine?
Sard and McKenna, I think.
We wanted to pick him up, but he went too high. St Kilda picked him up too high for where we placed him. So he went into the draft, I think he went into the rookie draft. St Kilda picked him up before our pick. From what I understand, and it was just we weren't willing to go that early for him. Similar, we picked up Irvin Mosquito. Irvin Mosquito? Although we got delisted this year, we went for him at, I think, pick 30, where Hawthorn, it was in his development squad, their development squad, they weren't willing to pick him up before 50. We went early, and, sometimes it work out, sometimes they don't work out, because Hindy obviously did work out, Mosquito didn't.
Yeah.
I think he showed glimpses, Irving Mosquito. His goals in the Dreamtime game up in Darwin. Amazing. Yeah, so unfortunate. So
it took 2 years to develop him, and they knew that was going to happen. Yeah. So that's why Hawthorn didn't want to go with him sort of too early, because they knew it would be 2 years of development.
He was a skinny kid coming in.
Yeah. So let's start with you, Lachie. Overall season verdict.
I went with a B-. We made the top 8 when I think a lot of people would have expected us to finish bottom 4 to 6. I think that was pretty common. Yeah. Obviously made the finals. I think if we had won a final, guaranteed A mark. Just fell short, I guess, in that first final. So B- is sort of where I'm placing them.
I'm going to go A- because it's probably the first year as a Bomber supporter I was not excited about the season. We talked about smoke and mirrors and he amped everyone up. Every year, pre-season, I'm like, get jacked. I'm like, no, this year's different. We've got this Abe coming in, he's coming in. I went into this season thinking we don't have a back line, we don't have a forward line, the mids aren't quite there. I thought we were going to finish second last, we weren't going to be worse than North Melbourne, and they just ticked all the right boxes. Attitude, game plan that we could see. They didn't give up in games. If we had won a final, it would have been an A for me. If we had won the grand final, that's A+. But for me, I couldn't be happy with last season. But from where my expectations were to where we ended.
I completely agree. So I gave us an A- as well. And I was, like I said before, very skeptical at first at how this season would go with some big list changes. But I think the fact that a number of those brand new acquisitions became stalwarts and guys that you could build a side around quite quickly. And we got, more out of the draft than I probably expected to see Nick Cox, Archie Perkins and Zach Reed, but I did not imagine that we would see them play 10, 12, 15 games in their first season, which was awesome. I thought our midfield obviously stood up, plenty of first use of the ball finally, which is something we've always had a lot of. And probably for the first time in a long time, you could actually see that there was not only a game plan, but a game plan that the boys understood, and a game plan they believed in. Yep. And I actually think even in the games that we lost them still going down trying to execute that game plan. And I think you take those losses in an early year as start of a build, as we're learning the different brand coming in from Worsfold's game plan of just like bomb it long down the line, hope Tipper takes a screamer over someone twice his height every time.
And when you go down by a couple of goals, it just unravels. Like the amount of comebacks we had when we thought we were out of it and the boys still fought for it. I think the culture there, everyone's sort of buying into as well, as much as it's a cliche thing. Yep. Like Truck actually making them train at Windy Hill once a week, putting up
all those old posters.
All the old posters, having the days with the old boys come in and your locker's got the old boys' numbers on it and they're mentoring them.
It's culture, right? It's the importance of any culture in really any organisation, and Essendon Football Club's no different. So
you did miss one acquisition here.
I think, who did I miss?
Alec Waterman. Miss Waters picked up in the practice
very
match.
Late.
Very late.
After that was published on the website. I apologise, Waters, if you ever
to be fair, he doesn't even have a photo on the... he missed the team photo.
That's right.
Because he got picked up so late in the season, pre-season.
Look, the other thing I'll say, we in the end, we scrapped against 4 or 5 other teams to make 8th. We, just made the final. That was the passing grade. Obviously lost the final to the team that went on to play in the Premiership. But we lost 4 or 5 games last season by less than 2 goals. Yep. And, if you can start to win those close games instead of lose literally every one of them, that is a top 4 finish. That is potentially a second chance. And I think that if we're looking forward to this year and building on where we were last year, that's what I want to see. That's where I want to be.
Yeah. Well, one thing I actually sort of took a screenshot of, we were 15th after round 8 and we're 2 and 6.
2 and 6 is what I remember most about that.
Yeah, and then we ended up finishing above the Crows, Blues, Suns, St Kilda, Freo, Richmond, West Coast.
Do you think West Coast and St Kilda everyone had them in the top 8 last year?
We'll get to the West Coast game definitely in a little bit, but that's probably my biggest fear. I don't want to talk too much about the season coming too far ahead, but I am a little bit worried now that we've had such a good year that we do what St Kilda did this year, where they make finals, everyone feels like they're building, or Melbourne a few years ago, made the prelims, and then all of a sudden we have a really regress back. And arguably for Melbourne, you take that now, looking at how it's turned out. But yeah, definitely those games in particular. I think that getting that first one on the board and not just beating St Kilda, but like putting them to the sword, like that's a sign of a good team, and that's what I want to see evolve in our game. Is I don't want to be nervous when we play the 17th or 16th team in the league. I don't want to beat the Crows by 4 points when they haven't won a game all year. Like I want to put those teams away and take that percentage. All right, boys, moving on. Best performers. Russ, we'll start with you. Give us your 3, 2, 1 for the season. Or it can be in no particular order.
I'll go in no particular order because it would be hard for me to rank these. For me, Harry Jones was outstanding. I know he didn't take the number 1 defender for most of the year because he was that second.
And we had Kale Hooker too.
Yeah, so Hooker took the number 1 defender. He was that last man back. Other than him missing 5 goals straight
to start
the season, I was a bit worried. But even for a skinny boy, he could take on the men. He could go through the packs. He's taking marks. He's kicking straight, and that's what we need. We need, if he puts a little more size on him, step up that game a little bit. He can be that number 1 forward, I think.
Don't know if you want to check the stats, but I'm pretty sure after those first 5 misses, he then went on to kick 17-1 for the rest of the season or something.
I've got the stats here I can pick up. My next big improver, it's got to be Laverde. New role. I never really rated him as anything more than a mid-tier player. He's in the forward line. He does his thing. He's always injured. But to move to the back line and then have the year that he had when he could have lost his spot in the forward line for not performing, and this became, if we lost him this year or last year, we're in trouble. So last one, Stringer. I thought he refound his form, kicking goals, and then his mid work and centre work was just elite. He was number 1 ranked player for the last 10 games of the season in the AFL, which people forget about. He was just outstanding in the middle. And every time you saw him in the middle, he's fucking running around trying to find it.
He made oppositions nervous.
Yeah.
And even if he didn't get the ball, when you worry them that you're going to get it, you open up.
We'd lose a goal, and I'm like, all right, that's okay, because we can reset now, and we'll get a goal from this.
Yeah.
And like that, who were we playing? West Coast? No, Western Bulldogs, when it was just goal from centre clearance. It's like, who's going to get the centre clearance at this time? That's exciting.
Yeah. Lachie?
All right. So I'm glad we didn't double up too often. I also had Laverde. I thought that he went from a player who would miss opportunities and obviously be regularly injured to playing every single game of the year. Super dependable in the back line. I also have him as my most improved player. Yeah. We'll get to that.
Yep.
Another best performer, Darcy Parish. What a year. I think to go from potentially not really playing as a midfield role, that's sort of like small forward, sometimes goes in the middle, to through injury and almost luck in a sense, to be arguably our best midfielder or second best behind Merritt. He had an incredible year, always performed in the big matches. And then I've also got Nick Hind, again, talking about such a value pickup, him off half back. Apart from maybe Redmond, we didn't have a player to cover Conor McKenna and Sard, and he was just the perfect player for that role. So I thought he did really well all season. Obviously, really unfortunate with the COVID protocols in the final. Who knows what would happen in that instance if he plays? But that were my 3.
I think we still probably lose that game, but I think it would have been a much tighter affair. I think that I had Darcy Parish and Nick Hind as toured as well. I'd love to see Darcy put on 4 kilos and really be almost that Cripps big body inside. I don't think he's ever going to get to that size.
He's short. He's only 180 centimetres.
Yeah.
He's been quite long enough that he hasn't really put on that size.
Well, I just thought towards the end of the season, or even sort of midway through, he was racking up medals and touches, and I just think towards the end of the year, and you tire off as well, playing in a new position and a new role, but I just think he got bullied off a little bit towards maybe the last
got tagged out of a couple of games.
And I think for him, God, it's hard to go from playing as a maybe half forward to an all-Australian midfielder and say, oh, there's still levels of your game that you could improve. But that's obviously something that he's going to have to work on moving forward. And you know, when you set the game on fire, you put a target on your back, right? Agree with everything you said with Darce. Agree with everything that you said with McKenna filling that hole. Nick Hine filling that hole with McKenna. And like I said, I don't think you can underrate, especially to the Essendon gameplay, how influential and how helpful breaking lines, run and carry actually is. And especially the way the game is played now, like getting through that zone and having a player who, and when Nick Hine gets done holding the ball, I don't care. Like, I want you to keep trying. And if you get done once or twice, it's probably meant that he's made it through 4 or 5 times. And so he was a big one for me. And the one that I had that you guys didn't was Will Snelling. I thought he had an incredible year. Real surprise packet for me. Hard nut forward, tough contested ball winner. And, you know, someone who was given a lifeline as a mid-season draft pick, took the opportunity with both hands, stamped his name on a spot in the 22, and we were having conversations
he was missed.
And when he was out, we missed him. We missed that attack on the ball, and that is a real mark of how important someone is when you notice, you know, their absence. So he and finished third in the Crichton as well, which probably surprised quite a lot of people.
Probably the best two-way runner for us, as in could run forward, but would stream back as soon as
high pressure, the tackles, the second efforts.
Will Snelling represents for me the brand of football that I want the Bombers to play. When you talk about, Truck talks about blue-collar Bombers, Will Snelling, Sam Durham, Matt Guelphy, and Dylan Clark, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well, those guys just will not get beaten. And if they're getting beaten, they're at least taking a player out of the contest with them, you know, and that is what I want to see. I want to see not just wrapping up tackles, and I don't necessarily want to see sling tackles either, but I want tackles that stick, tackles that bring pressure, like that forward pressure making defenders fumbly, and those 4 guys in particular led by Snelling, for me, that represents the brand of football.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I give an honourable mention?
Yes, you can, of course.
To the skipper. Because I thought he was cooked at the start of the season. I was like, we need to start thinking who's going to take over the captaincy. He doesn't have the legs anymore to be in the middle. He wasn't getting his touches. But by the end of the season, being that mature body that's sort of directing everyone on the back line, he found his spot again on the half back.
Well, he won our Most Courageous Award at our medal night. So, and I was probably a similar view. At the start of the year, looked very slow, got caught holding the ball a few times.
Is he in the best 22?
Yeah.
And I think as the old group chat, that was a conversation we're having every week.
Yes.
Are we picking him purely because he's the captain? Because I don't think he's at the level that, you know, he can be at, or that we need him to be at to be taking up a spot.
I think at his captaincy as well, there was stories that talked about, is he a good captain?
Is he too nice?
Yeah, and then seeing some of the things that came out and everyone actually getting around him, that rev up he did at the I think...
We lost the third game. I think we lost to...
And they went in the rooms.
Sydney,
I think it was Sydney. They went in the rooms, you saw the rev up he gave to all the boys, and it was just like, maybe he does.
And that was the talk too, that, on field but off field, there's a lot of talk about Merritt plays one role and Heppel plays the other. And I think that, again, when you talk about building culture, if Heppel is someone that the boys want out there, want to be out there with them, he's definitely earned and holding his spot with the kind of football that he's been playing. And I think that's just good for his confidence too, and the confidence of the group that's around him. Boys, wherever there's yin, there's yang. So let's go and flip the coin from our best performers of the year. Russ, we'll start with you.
Mine's
our worst performers for the year.
I think I wouldn't say probably they're the worst performers for me, but most disappointing.
Who fell short of expectations, let you down, or went missing?
Chipper let me down. Start of the season.
That's rough.
That is a big call. I want you to look down the camera.
I love him. He didn't miss a game for so long.
Oh, the record, didn't he? At Essendon, 130.
Essendon, yeah.
He was like, I think third behind, of all time or something. And he just started so well that he got to round 10. And I know he sort of took some time away from the club, and there could be some other things out there, but we needed him at the back end of that season to be that goal sneak. He just wasn't at the level that he has been. I guess it's at his own detriment that he's been at such a high level for so long. Last couple of years, we'd always say in the group chat, if Tipper kicks a goal, we win.
Yeah. Well, that was the stat. That was a legitimate statistic.
Barometer.
Yeah.
And then round 10, he kind of just went missing. Other people picked up, like Stringer picked up from round 10, and we got through it. So I'm just hoping he comes back. He's still in my best 22 now.
Yeah, I think with Tipper, you're right. Like, it's not a fair expectation as a supporter to expect Tipper to make the miracle play every time he goes near the ball. And so every time he doesn't make that miracle play, you feel like he's let you down. And I think that, he had some niggles with injury and had some niggles with form. And obviously he's having some other battles off field at the moment as well. But I think he's in our best 22 for sure when he's at the level that, and he's a bit like that Cyril Rioli playing for us. He doesn't need to have 25 touches because the 7 or 8 touches that he does have, if he's having 7 kicks and kicking 3 goals, that's huge. Yeah. That's a huge return.
He's an impact player. I think he got shafted a little bit. He was injured. I think he was playing injured. He got to a point where...
it just looked like he had to be injured.
Tired and slow for a guy who's a speedster.
I think because we didn't have another small forward capable of kicking goals, Irving Mosquito as an example, not playing in the recent years for us, there was no one as a backup to be that player, and so he had to play. And so I think where you would have rested him a lot earlier in the season, just taken a week off potentially, and he would have completely changed, I think he kept grinding through, and that was to his detriment.
I guess the other point to think about too is, don't forget, they're in a lockdown and a hub situation for second year running. So when you've got players who are used to going home, spending time with family, recharging, particularly of like the bye weekend and things like that, as much as I love you two boys, if we had to be locked in the same room for 8, 12, 14 weeks, it'd probably be doing a fair bit to my mental health, I imagine.
No, I
think we'd get through it.
Next for me is Devin Smith.
I had Devin Smith.
Jesus, he just is so frustrating as a supporter to watch, to give away double 50s in a row, with goals. Just he cares more about getting the free kick than attacking the footy, and it's just a complete 180 from when he won his first year's medal. Yeah.
Yep. 2019.
And he just doesn't look like he's got back from his knee. Was it a knee injury? Knee surgery?
He came to us with knee problems,
which we knew about.
Yep.
And then
won the Crichton and then did the knee.
Yeah, so obviously got his fitness to a level where he dominated that first year for us, and then ongoing knee issues.
He's that guy that attacks everything. Like we said, that blue collar, just get in there, get the job done, go after everything. And now it's, I'm not quite good enough to get him, so I'm just going to trip him up and give out 50 or something.
There was one particular tackle towards the end of last season. I can't remember who we were playing, but he ran from half back to the wing. Probably would have clocked the land speed record, made a hit, got the free kick. And I'm pretty sure a goal resulted. But that's what's disappointing about him, is he gives those glimpses of that brilliance, and then he does shit like hitting late, giving away free kicks, and some of those stupid 50s and free kicks.
As a senior player too.
Right, as a leadership player. We're a team that when momentum swings against us, it fucking swings hard. And a lot of those free kicks you can pinpoint as turning points into a 4 or 5 goal turnaround against us. And Dev, if you're listening, got to get that shit out of your game. You have to get that shit out of your game. You have to get that shit out of your game. Because if you're not... Even the last game against Collingwood... he was back. He played really well. Good forward pressure. Yep.
Yeah.
So he's shown that he's still capable and that he wants to be there. But it's not skill errors. It's just discipline.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that almost makes it worse.
Yeah.
Something
easily fixed.
My final one is going to be Aaron Francis, because he's same draft year as Parish. We know that Parish has sort of got that next level to step up. He was taken before Parish in the draft. I don't think we managed him well enough at the club. He started the season, I was really happy seeing him be that number 1 defender. Mm-hmm. Then they took him out, they rested him, he had some time away from the club, they put him in the forward line, and I think they just tried to move him around. If they just had kept him in the back line, I think he found his position. He looked like he was happy playing footy, and for someone like him, he looks like a confidence player. Like, I know he's had some issues away from footy, but he looks the happiest when he's in that sort of defender, last man. He looked like he was enjoying footy for the first time, I think, since he's come to the club.
That come across third man up, big punch, I much prefer him as a defender than a forward.
I don't think we should have put him forward. He needs some consistency. I thought this was a year that he was going to step up, and he didn't quite do that. So hopefully next year, that's
Yeah.
Agree with
that. That's my 3.
All right, on to me. Yeah. I've got one name, and we just spoke about him, Devin Smith.
We've all got Dev.
Yeah. So I think that towards the end of the season, even before the Collingwood game, I think he showed really good signs. He seemed to turn a corner where he was tackling and chasing really hard again, but he seemed to also look to pass off goals a little bit more often. He'd gone from a player that would try to kick the miracle goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if he didn't, it would burn us, to almost being too unselfish with passing off when he could have taken the shot. But I'd probably prefer to see that from him. Hopefully that means that this season he can just carry on that form. I agree with everything you said about Francis, although I felt that we didn't have a role for him in our back line anymore. If you move Laverde back, you've got Ridley down there. They were trying to play Stewart as that big key defender.
So who's our number one? Who was our number one key defender last year? Was it Laverde? Wasn't your key defender?
You have to say Ridley. No,
he's still that.
I would say Stewart.
Yeah, I think
Stewart was our big key defender,
which I think was a mistake.
Laverde was the next that was a lockdown defender. Could play tall, but he could also play on a small player. And then Ridley, for me, was the general down back. He generally plays taller, but definitely he's got the speed to match it with those little guys. I just didn't see a spot for Francis in our back line.
See, for me, I'd take out Stewart and put Francis in.
In hindsight, would you leave Hooker back and put Stewart forward?
In hindsight? No. I'd leave Hooker at the front.
For me, it's a no as well.
Yeah, because he still got his 35 goals or whatever it was. That's what and he took number one defender, even more importantly.
He protected Jones, and he protected Wright when, as you said, he was forced to play a bit of rock.
Stringer, otherwise maybe get the number one. So, in hindsight, yes.
Still no.
No, in hindsight, I'd keep it that way. Pre-season, I'd be like, no.
Yeah. Nice.
Just the one for me, Smith.
Yeah, so, I mean, we've all had Devin Smith, so I guess there's a message there. I had James Stewart as one of my worst performers. He just makes me nervous. When he gets the ball, I think he panics, and he's questionable decision-making.
It's rough going down back. You've been a key forward your whole life.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden you've got no space for you. You're still in a contract.
You're still an AFL level standard player.
So you've got to go somewhere. We've got to turn back.
If you're going down if you're on the field and you're in that position, then when we've got guys like potentially Aaron Francis who can't get a spot in the back line, then maybe that's the switch there. I think he will struggle this year to keep his spot in the side.
Agreed.
I think there's a lot of pressure for those roles now. Yep. But from what I've heard, he is training well. So again,
he's a specimen. Don't be wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's never just quite hit that next level.
All show, no go.
Yeah.
A bit like myself.
Honestly, I think this season he'll play the exact same role for the entirety of the season and be picked almost every round. I think that Reed, as long as he progresses and puts on weight, will be his replacement. And then the following season will almost solely be Reed who's stepped up.
And my last one, Dylan Shiel.
How did I forget about? He was injured. He was injured most of the season, so I kind of forget him about. He
went missing all year for me. He definitely was injured. He looked like he was carrying something even when he was in the side, and he just honestly looks like he's a little bit lost. He's not quite sure if he should be. Maybe we're lost with him. We want to play him because he's a gun, but where are we playing him? We can't. He's not a halfback, especially with the halfbacks we've got.
Yep.
Arguably, Cox is taking his spot on the wing, and so where do you put him? And potentially he is playing that sub role or that bench role and playing as. But we're paying $850,000 to a guy who's not, in my opinion, in our best 18.
100%.
Okay. Lovely boys. Jeez, I hate talking negative about our beloved football club, but there's always got to be...
It's a good release. Yeah. I think it really helps.
This is a group chat, though. It's getting out.
Hey, the truth bombers, mate. We're just calling it how we see it. It's just an opinion piece. Russ, back to you, mate. Favourite wins of this year?
See...
Which are the games that got you up out of the chair?
I did a tie for two. I couldn't split them. The St Kilda game, we just absolutely smashed them. I don't think I was in the group chat just saying I can't stop smiling. It was like we'd just been, the start of the season was so horrible. We'd just come off the loss to Port and you're thinking the season's over already.
Yep.
Saints were supposed to be in the top 8 and we just pummeled them. Full side. It wasn't like they were playing injured. Full playing side and it was demoralising for them, and I loved every single second of it.
I think I watched the KO mini of that probably 4 or 5 times that week in the field.
With some tissues.
We should make that an NFT, just the KO mini. And then the Bulldogs game, when it was just an absolute shootout, like I sort of mentioned before, it was just who was breaking the lines the best. It was just goal after goal. You get a goal, it's all right, I'll get one back on the next set of clearance. It was just so exciting, seeing Stringer get in there. every moment of the game we thought there was going to be a goal.
It felt good this year to have multiple games where we scored over 100 points.
Yeah,
and we didn't win them all, but I think we've lacked high scores and the ability to get goals, and that was something that I really enjoyed from this year. Lachie, your 2 favourite wins?
Anzac Day, I was there for the game.
Oh, yeah.
Just the atmosphere. I think early on we went about 3 or 4 goals down.
First 3 they kicked against us.
So very early, it's like, this is going to be a long day early in the season, and fought back. Last quarter, obviously, sort of took over and ended up running away with it a little bit. That was my favourite win, definitely. Probably a close second was round 11 versus West Coast.
Yep.
Weren't expected to win that one. They were in the 8. We weren't at that stage. We came from behind.
When was the last time we won against West Coast? In West Coast.
In Perth.
Even as a kid, I would remember that. I was just, you're like, what's the fun point watching?
Yeah.
We're in West Coast. We're not going to win.
I remember that last quarter. It was just like an avalanche of points at the start of the last quarter, and then we finally broke through, and it was just game over after that. But they're my top 2.
Yep, I had that one as well. West Coast away, I think when you talk about a young group and doing things to build culture, there's nothing that galvanizes and builds belief like a big win like that, a gutsy win like that on the road against a team like West Coast, which at the time were pushing the top 4. They dropped off a cliff towards the end of the year. But I think they only lost one other game for the season at home.
At home,
Yep. So that was a big one. And I had the Dogs as well in that second or third last round. Granted, they didn't have their best day, but just to get that Bulldogs hoodoo off the back, ever since they flogged us by 20 goals a couple of years ago, they have just been a bogey team for them. We line up against them so badly, they get the run on, they kick 4 or 5 in a row, and our heads drop, and it's the first quarter, and you're just waiting for the gates to open. So finally getting one back on the board for them. Obviously, it didn't go our way, for the final, and that probably shows us that overall they're a better team than we are, but it's also the team that went on to make the grand final. So if you're going to lose in the first round of finals, you may as well lose to a team that's vying off for the premiership. Russ, back to you. Actually, we'll mix it up. Lachie, hardest loss.
All right, I've got the same one. I've got round 19 versus GWS. We were ahead by about 3 goals at halftime. We didn't kick a goal after that. It was a game that if we had have won would have cemented our spot in the 8.
Not waiting on other people to get results to get in the 8.
And I just thought how we played in the first half to the second, it looked like you're watching 2 different teams. And it looked like the Bombers of the last the previous year. Whereas okay, when things are going well, we've got a certain style about us. And when things aren't going well, we've got a game plan that's shocking. But that was definitely my hardest loss.
Worst goal.
And
kicking, I'll hope for the best.
My close second has to be the elimination final versus the Dogs. Obviously, we went in as big underdogs, pardon the pun. But to be
believed.
Yeah, there was a lot of belief with the group. I would say at halftime being within a goal, and we'd had opportunities potentially we could have been in front of that stage to sort of fall over. The second half, we just seemed to roll over, no spine. There was lots of instances where they looked bigger, they looked hungrier, and we weren't able to match it in the wet, obviously. But
big finish to a big year. We had to win a lot of games on the trot just to make finals, and I think
starting 6 and 2, 2
yeah,
and 6,
and also a big heavy reliance on guys that are first, second year senior footballers. And you do get tired and you run out of puff. And also maybe more impressive about Cox and Perkins in particular is there was no footy last year at their level, so they were also coming off a year of no real match fitness.
They haven't played a game since under 16.
Yeah, so and I think that's definitely catch up. My 2 big ones, probably the most painful one was Hawthorn in round 1. To be up by 8 goals, and to lose that game by a point. I thought it was very unfair that people that were putting that on Harry Jones. I think that took the whole team to crush a 48-point lead.
I had the same one as you, and for me it felt like, here we go again.
Yep.
Like, this is our season. We're the same old Bombers like you talked about from the Worsfold era. We just roll over and die when something doesn't go our way. And I was like, it's going to be a long season.
I had 2 of my PT clients are Hawthorn supporters, and we had 100 burpees on that game. And I was made to do those on the pub floor. With every number that they were counting out the burpees, they also gave me the Hawthorn player list number as well. So that was an experience. And the Carlton game. First game at the G that we've been to, we were there together.
We went together. You know what?
That was Matea's first game of football, so maybe there's a lesson there for her. And
who's your daughter, if anyone is listening for the first
who's
time?
my daughter? Yeah. First game of live football in 2 years at the G. I always want to beat Carlton. I love the way that they get talked up every year, and they always under-deliver.
And it was Sardi's only good game for the whole season.
Really good game. And he tore us apart. Which you probably, looking back, probably should have expected. But I felt like that was a game that we were winning. The ball, the play, a lot of control, just not on the scoreboard. And that was one of those games we kicked 120 points and still lost.
Yeah.
So that was hard. Crichton medal. If you couldn't give it to Zachy Merritt to take him out, who wins it?
I've got 3 names, so I know that's maybe a little bit sitting on the fence. Jordan Ridley, to me, the last couple of years has just been incredible. And I think this season just gone, he probably didn't get the credits because he didn't burst onto the scene like the previous season. But every single week, super reliable. Parish, obviously, how can you go past Parish if you're not picking Merritt?
Yep.
Breakout season for him. Really stood up in the big games, like won the medal in the Anzac Day game, the Dreamtime game, the game against Geelong. Like,
what's that medal?
It's a farmer's medal or something. It's a farming round.
Is it?
Yeah. I know it's like country.
Boy.
Yeah,
country. I know I'm a Geelong boy.
It's the country farmers thing that Cheedy came up with a few years ago. I'm not really sure what it is. What the official name is.
We'll research that. We'll get back to that episode too.
Yeah, fact check. And finally, Laverde for me. Obviously, we've talked about him, but fantastic year. I think every single week he was very reliable. Very rarely got beaten one-on-one. One contest that I didn't expect him to win, and completely changed himself as a player. To go from a forward that was barely able to kick a goal a game to a backman that I would pencil in round 1, best 22, best 5. Well, maybe that's
best 6 defenders.
Yeah, best 6 or 7 players for us in terms of who I pick week in, week out.
Well, the guys in the Sash were talking sort of mid last year, and they were saying
we don't mention them, do we?
Oh no, we're all friends.
We're all friends.
We're all friends here.
Boys from the Sash want to come down and have a chat.
Yeah, we'll come see them.
We're wearing the t-shirt.
Yeah, we're wearing the t-shirts. They were saying,
we'll blur it out.
Well, they were saying it takes 3 years for someone to change up their roles and to fully understand not only like the way to play as a defender, but to learn the systems of the back line. So for someone like that to just go in and in a few games just start to dominate, and while we saw Stewart, I think, take a little bit longer and still probably not get there, it's not an easy thing just to be like, you've been go be a defender this week.
The most frustrating thing for me with Laverde is what his hands are doing in the back line. If he did that in the forward line, he would be our leading goal scorer. For me, Darcy Parish, too hard to go fast. Best first year players, I'm conscious of time. Nick Hine for me, number 1. Nick Cox, number 2. Archie Perkins, number 3.
Well, best first years, you got to go. Yeah, Nick Hine has to be there. Harrison Jones wasn't his first year though.
Wasn't his first year. Was his first year? First senior games?
First senior game this year. It's not first year of the club.
Yeah.
No, second senior game. He played 1 for Hawthorn. He was on the books previous year. Last year was his first.
When did he debut in the seniors? Okay, we'll play him as a first year player.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he debuted at the round 1 versus Hawks.
Okay.
I thought that was what was the go. I've got Cox. I think he fell away towards the end of the year, but his impact early on, coming off like no footy as you mentioned, like previous years. To me, Perkins towards the end of the season showed what he's capable of. Really impressive in the game versus Adelaide that we all dreaded watching because it was just a snooze fest, but incredible performance from him. That would definitely be my top 2.
Yeah. Most improved, I think we've kind of mentioned all the way through. Laverde, it sounds like he's a pretty confident number 1 for all of us. I had Matt Guelphy, number 2. I think he's only been given a 1-year contract extension. I think that's criminal. I think he should be looking at least 2 or 3 years. And I had Hep, as you mentioned before, as my number 3.
Yeah.
Definitely given his last season, I think he improved out of sight this year. Happy with those?
Yeah.
I've got any other favourite memories or favourite moments from the season. Heppel returning to form was a big one. But for me, Zach Merritt re-signing. When that occurred halfway through the season, I think that was, for me, just that big sense of relief. The fact that he's also buying into what we're doing and what we're building, and that's obviously what you want from your leaders. But I'm excited that he's sticking around.
For someone who was so much talk, when anyone says I'm postponing to the end of the year for contract talks,
get nervous.
You know that's nervous. There was other players saying he's not happy at the end of last year, and he was already looking at options at the end of the worst 12 years. And some close friends were saying he's probably not going to stay. Yeah. So for him to now buy into what you said and be excited to be at the club,
it made me excited as a member.
For the first time, I feel like we're on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about signings, Parish as well, to go along with Merritt, to go along with Stringer, all of those players, I think, set us up for the next couple of seasons.
Raz still got 2 years?
2 years, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of our bigger names have got a couple of years on their contracts. My favourite moments, just some little things. Wright kicking 7, like most of them for 50 metres outside 50, just straight through the guts. And going back to Anzac Day game, Darcy Parish in that game was just like unbelievable. One of the best single player performances I think I've ever seen over my years following Bombers.
Someone like Parish to also go through, was it the Dreamtime game, where the top 5 players were all Tigers, and he still beat them for the medal.
It's nice to win it, to be able to win a medal when you lose a game.
Yeah,
I think looking at grand finals, I think Chris Judd was probably the last one to do it. But it's good. It makes you believe again that it is objective, right? It's not just like they won and therefore
we better give it to them.
Yeah. Boys, thank you. First one in the
books.
Episode. Thanks, lads.
There's a big recap of 2021, and look forward to sitting down again or standing up again at the desk and previewing season 2022.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
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 Play outro. Cue outro music.